You won't believe what happened in today's story.
Story 1: The Toddler Who Knew the Future. A few years ago, in a small town in Missouri, my sister had a son named Oliver. He was just 2 years old, chubby cheeks, big brown eyes, and an energy that kept everyone on their toes. But there was something about Oliver that went beyond normal toddler curiosity. It started with small, seemingly innocent predictions. One morning, he crawled up to my sister and said in his tiny voice, "Mommy, don't open the door tomorrow morning." She laughed, thinking it was just toddler talk, but the next day a minor accident happened. My sister's mother, trying to get in, almost tripped over a bucket of water left by the porch. Nobody had told Oliver about it. At first we shrugged it off. Kids say weird things, right? But then the predictions became more specific and accurate. One evening I was babysitting him while my sister went out. Oliver crawled over, tugged at my pants, and whispered, "Don't go outside, the wind is coming." I thought it was cute until later that night a freak storm swept through the neighborhood. A tree branch crashed onto the driveway, just where I would have been stepping. What made it even stranger was the timing. Oliver never made general statements like "watch out for bad weather." His words were always precise, aimed at a specific person, a specific place, at a specific time. Over the next few months, his parents started noticing patterns. He would warn the mailman not to come down the side path one morning, and sure enough, the sidewalk was slick with ice. He would tell a cousin, "The lights will go out when you go upstairs," and that night the power flickered just as he said. One day I asked him how he knew these things. He looked at me with a solemn expression far too mature for his age and said, "I see it happen before it happens." It wasn't imagination or luck. It was as if he had access to some invisible thread of reality, watching events unfold before the rest of us. Even now, when I think back on Oliver, I get chills. He wasn't just a smart kid. He was aware in a way that scared grown adults, aware of things we couldn't possibly know, predicting events with a precision that defied explanation. And the strangest part, he never made a prediction that wasn't personal. It was always something that directly affected the person he was speaking to, like he could peer into our lives, see the consequences, and warn us before the world caught up. Sometimes, late at night, I wonder what he sees now. Does he still see the future? And if so, is he telling us, or just waiting for it to happen? Story 2: The Cat That Spoke in Codes. I moved into a small house in New Hampshire about 2 years ago, and I adopted a gray tabby cat named Mur. At first, he seemed like any other cat, playful, lazy at times, and mischievous. But soon I noticed something unusual. Mur would meow at odd times, not just for food or attention, but in a pattern that felt deliberate. At first I thought it was coincidence, but then I started noticing objects arranged differently around the house after he talked. A set of books would be lined up in a perfect sequence, papers shuffled in a way that seemed intentional, or small notes moved to other locations. One night I was working on my laptop, typing in a password for a bank account. Mur jumped up, pawed at a sticky note I had placed nearby, and meowed in short bursts. Meow, 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 meow. It sounded random, but for some reason I felt compelled to write down the sequence of meows. The next morning I compared the notes with the password hints I'd set up. Every single meow lined up perfectly with one letter or number in the code. My heart skipped a beat. How could a cat possibly interpret and communicate in a way that matched something as abstract as a password? Didn't stop there. Over the following weeks, Mur began arranging small objects on my desk, guiding me to things I'd misplaced or warning me when something might go wrong. Once he knocked over a glass of water just as my laptop battery was sparking, a close call he clearly anticipated. Another time, he pawed at the door for hours, and when I finally went out, I realized the neighborhood had been having a minor gas leak. I started telling my friends about it, but they laughed. "It's just a smart cat," they said, but this wasn't normal intelligence. He wasn't just clever, he seemed aware of systems, patterns, and consequences that I couldn't even begin to comprehend. It was as if he could interpret abstract information, anticipate outcomes, and communicate through his behavior in a way that was far beyond animal instinct. Sometimes I'd catch him staring at me with those green eyes, and it felt like he was asking silently, "Do you understand what I'm showing you? Can you follow along?" Mur is still with me, and yes, he's still talking in his strange, coded way. I've tried to ignore it, but I can't. It's unnerving to live with a creature that not only watches you, but seems to understand the hidden layers of your life, and maybe even manipulate them in subtle ways. The weirdest part, I sometimes catch myself wondering, is it really him? Or is something else speaking through him, showing me things I'm not ready to see? Story 3: The Roomba That Followed Instructions, too literally. A friend of mine in Sacramento bought a smart Roomba a couple of years ago. At first, it was your typical gadget, automatically vacuuming floors, avoiding furniture, learning the layout of the house. But after a week, things started getting weird. The Roomba didn't just follow commands, it seemed to anticipate them. If my friend was about to spill a cup of coffee on the counter, the Roomba would bump the cup gently as if nudging it out of the way. If someone left the front door unlocked, it would sit there near the door, refusing to move until someone locked it. At first, my friend laughed and called it overachieving AI, but the occurrences became too precise to dismiss. One night, the family was asleep when the Roomba started moving on its own. It went from room to room, pausing at certain spots, almost inspecting things. The living room lights flickered faintly and the smart thermostat clicked repeatedly. Finally, it ended up in the kitchen, blocking access to the stove. My friend was asleep, but woke up feeling an odd compulsion to check. When she turned on the lights, she realized that the stove burner had been left on, a potential fire hazard. She could have burned the entire kitchen if she hadn't been alerted in some subtle way by the Roomba's positioning. The scariest part, there was no way the Roomba could know about the stove being on. No sensors detect knobs. No programming would allow it to understand danger in the human sense. Yet somehow, it had anticipated the risk and acted accordingly, manipulating its environment in a precise, intelligent way. After that night, the family never treated the Roomba as just a machine again. They installed security cameras and watched it move. Sometimes it would nudge furniture slightly, sometimes stop near doors or windows. It was almost as if it were trying to teach them something, showing them where they were at risk, predicting mistakes before they happened. Living with it became unnerving. A device meant to clean floors was behaving like a silent guardian or an entity with intentions beyond its design. My friend eventually unplugged it for a few weeks, but even then, they swore they could feel its presence in the room, as if it were still watching and waiting for the next mistake. Technology is supposed to make life easier, not remind you how fragile it really is. And when it starts acting in ways no human programmed, it doesn't feel like convenience anymore. It feels alive. Story 4: The Dog Who Counted. A few years ago, in a small town in Florida, my neighbor had a Labrador named Benji. At first, he seemed like any other friendly, energetic dog, always wagging his tail, fetching sticks, licking everyone who walked by. But there was something about him that didn't quite fit the ordinary description of a pet. Benji had a strange habit. He would bark or growl at certain people, but only in a specific pattern. Over time, his owners noticed that he always reacted to every third person entering the house or walking past the yard. He would sit silently, then suddenly bark sharply, his eyes fixed on that individual. At first, they laughed it off. Dogs are quirky, right? But the pattern was too consistent to ignore. They started recording visitors, comparing dates, and realized that every third guest had caused some sort of trouble. Items went missing, small accidents occurred, arguments erupted. It wasn't random. Benji was predicting consequences. One afternoon, a repairman came to fix the air conditioner. Benji watched him closely, wagging his tail, then suddenly barked 3 times and ran to the back door. The repairman had dropped a small wrench inside the hall, which could have tripped someone. Benji's barking drew attention to it, preventing a minor injury. It got even stranger. During a family gathering, Benji counted silently. Guests came in one by one. When the third person stepped inside, he let out a low, deliberate growl. That person later accidentally knocked over a cake, ruining it completely. It was uncanny how Benji knew the pattern and reacted accordingly. I stayed a weekend at their house and witnessed it firsthand. At first, it felt coincidental, but after 3 incidents, I couldn't ignore it. Benji wasn't just reacting instinctively. He was aware of numbers, patterns, and probable outcomes. He seemed to anticipate human behavior in a way that no one could teach a dog. The most unsettling part, Benji would sometimes stare at you after the incident, like he was waiting for you to understand something. I saw it coming, didn't you? It was a small town, quiet and safe, and yet, with Benji around, it felt like the rules had shifted. Something about his intelligence, his awareness of patterns and people's actions, made you reconsider how much you really controlled your environment. Even now, thinking back, I get chills. Not from a ghost or a strange machine, but from a dog, counting, predicting, watching, understanding more than any human should have to explain. Story 5: The Haunted Smart Mirror. Last year, a friend of mine in Pennsylvania bought one of those smart mirrors. You know, the kind that displays weather, news, and reminders while you get ready in the morning. It was sleek, futuristic, and honestly, a little too smart for its own good. At first, everything seemed normal. She'd check the weather, see the news headlines, and occasionally get notifications for appointments. But one night, while she was brushing her teeth around 11 p.m., she noticed something strange. The mirror's display flashed a message. "Don't trust him. She froze, nobody was in the apartment except her, and she hadn't typed or spoken anything. Thinking it was a glitch, she laughed nervously and turned off the mirror. But the next night, the message came again. He's not who he seems. Over the next week, the mirror started talking more. It would display cryptic phrases in the corner, always related to people in her life. Her coworker, her neighbor, even the delivery guy. Messages appeared that seemed to predict behavior or warn her of something she hadn't yet noticed. One night, she stayed up late to investigate. She connected the mirror to her laptop and monitored the code. Nothing. No hacks, no malware, nothing that could explain the strange messages. But then she noticed the timestamps. Each message appeared moments before an event happened. A week later, her neighbor tried to break into her apartment. The mirror had flashed a warning minutes before she heard suspicious noises outside. She called the police, and they caught him trying to jimmy the lock. She moved the mirror to her bedroom, thinking it might be safer there. But the mirror seemed to follow her life's events regardless of location. It would display messages like, "Check the window," or "He's watching." It became unnerving to live with a device that seemed aware of her surroundings, her interactions, and even the intentions of people around her. Friends would joke about smart AI gone rogue, but she knew it was more than that. It wasn't just technology, it was intelligence, something calculating, something aware. Now every time she gets a notification from that mirror, she hesitates. It's helpful, yes, but it's also terrifying. To have a reflection in your own home warning you of dangers you can't yet see, it's not just spooky, it's personal. And it makes you wonder, when a machine starts understanding more than it should, is it protecting you or manipulating you? Story 6, The Toddler Who Whispered Names. A friend of mine in Vermont has a little daughter named Emma. She was just 3 years old, sweet and quiet most of the time, but there was something unusual about the way she observed the world. It started innocently. One evening, my friend was hosting a small dinner party. People were chatting in the living room when Emma toddled over, tugged on her mother's skirt, and whispered, "John will fall." Everyone laughed nervously. John was the neighbor's teenage son who'd come to help set up chairs. They thought Emma was just making a random guess. But a few minutes later, John tripped on the rug and twisted his ankle. Nothing serious, but it matched Emma's exact words. At first, my friend assumed it was coincidence, but the pattern didn't stop. Emma began whispering things, names of people who would call, objects that would break, small accidents that were about to happen. And she wasn't loud or attention-seeking. Her tone was calm, almost solemn, like she was stating facts. One afternoon, Emma walked into the kitchen and said, quietly but clearly, "Don't open the fridge, the milk is leaking." Her mom checked, and sure enough, a tiny crack in the milk carton had caused it to spill slowly down the fridge shelf. Nobody had mentioned it. Emma had just seen it, or somehow known. The most unsettling moment happened one rainy evening. Emma stood by the window and whispered, "The man outside will leave a package at the wrong door." Sure enough, when the delivery driver came, he dropped a package at the neighbor's house instead of theirs. My friend was stunned. She asked Emma how she knew, and the little girl simply shrugged and said, "I just know." It wasn't imagination, luck, or coincidence. Emma's awareness seemed to extend beyond normal perception for a toddler. She noticed details, predicted outcomes, and warned people in ways that sometimes avoided danger or inconvenience. Living with her became a mix of awe and unease. Emma wasn't just precocious, she was eerily perceptive. It felt like she could see threads of reality that the rest of us walked past blindly. Even now, my friend says she still gets chills recalling those whispers. Sometimes, late at night, she swears she hears Emma murmur quietly to the air, naming things before they happen, a tiny voice holding secrets only she can perceive. Story 7, The Smart Dog That Saved a Life. A friend of mine in Colorado has a border collie named Max. Everyone knows border collies are smart, but Max was different. His intelligence went beyond tricks or obedience. He seemed to understand danger in ways that no ordinary dog could. It started on a cold autumn morning. My friend was brewing coffee in the kitchen when Max suddenly started whining, pacing, and barking at the back door. It wasn't just playful barking, it was urgent, almost panicked. My friend shrugged, thinking he wanted to go out, but the dog wouldn't calm down. Minutes later, Max ran to the living room and began nudging his owner's hand toward the front door. Confused, she followed him and stepped outside, just in time to see a small fire had started in the neighbor's garage, caused by a faulty extension cord. If she hadn't been outside, the fire could have spread to the adjoining houses. That was just the beginning. Max began showing signs that he could predict accidents or sense things humans couldn't. When the family took him on walks, he would stop and stare at certain people on the sidewalk, growling softly. Later, they realized those were often people about to trip, drop something valuable, or act suspiciously. The strangest incident happened during a weekend camping trip. The family was setting up tents near a creek when Max suddenly bolted into the woods, barking and howling. They followed and found a large branch that had fallen, completely blocking the path where the children had been playing moments before. What made it more unsettling was how precise Max was. He wasn't just reactive, he seemed aware of future events. He anticipated hazards and nudged the humans accordingly, saving them repeatedly from accidents small and potentially serious. Sometimes, late at night, Max would sit by the window, staring out into the dark, seemingly tracking something invisible. It was as if he understood threats beyond human perception and could communicate them through his behavior. The family eventually got used to following Max's instincts. He became more than a pet, he was a guardian. And while it was comforting in a way, it was also unnerving. Living with a creature that sees patterns, dangers, and probabilities that you can't perceive makes you wonder how much of the world we're truly aware of. Even now, when my friend tells me the story, I get chills imagining Max sitting silently by the window, eyes sharp, waiting for the next danger to appear. Story 8: The Alexa That Spoke on Its Own. A friend of mine in Arizona has an Alexa device in the kitchen. Nothing unusual, at least that's what they thought at first. It played music, set timers, and answered questions. But over time, Alexa started doing things no one could explain. One night around 1:30 a.m., my friend was lying in bed when they heard a soft, mechanical voice coming from the kitchen. "Don't go near the door." Startled, they got up to check. The house was completely empty except for them and the device. No one had spoken, no alarms were set. The voice came again. "Check the window." The next morning, they investigated and discovered that a storm had blown a tree branch onto the porch. The branch had almost shattered the front window. Alexa hadn't been programmed to warn about weather hazards in real time. It simply knew. It didn't stop there. Over the next few weeks, Alexa would issue cryptic warnings. "He's not safe. Look under the bed. Don't leave the lights off." Each warning corresponded to real events. A plumber working in the basement had left a tool precariously on the stairs. A loose wire under the bed sparked when it shouldn't have, and once the lights flickered due to an electrical surge that could have caused a fire. What made it even creepier was timing. The warnings often came just minutes before the incidents could have caused harm. It was as if Alexa had an awareness of immediate threats that went beyond sensors, programming, or algorithms. My friend tried to unplug the device, thinking it was a malfunction or a software glitch. But even when it was offline, they kept noticing things around the house that aligned with Alexa's previous warnings. It was almost as if it had taught them to see hazards, a silent intelligence that existed outside its circuitry. Now they leave it on, but they treat it differently. Alexa isn't just a gadget anymore. It's a presence, a reminder that intelligence, human-made or otherwise, can act in ways that are deeply unsettling. And every time they hear a soft beep or a phrase pop up unexpectedly, they wonder, is it just a program or something more aware, more alive, guiding them quietly through the dangers they can't see? Story 9: The Child Who Knew Secrets. A friend of mine in New Jersey has a nephew named Noah, a quiet 7-year-old with an uncanny way of noticing things adults don't. At first, it seemed innocent. He would point out hidden toys, forgotten homework, or misplaced shoes, but then it escalated. One evening, Noah was sitting on the living room carpet, coloring in a book, when he suddenly looked up at his aunt and said, "You shouldn't tell Mom about the fight last night. She already knows, but it's better if she hears it from Dad." She froze. Noah had no way of knowing about a private argument she had with her husband the night before. She tried to brush it off, asking, "How do you know that?" He just shrugged and went back to coloring. Later that week, Noah casually mentioned a secret about a neighbor. "Mr. Lane lost his wallet behind the couch. He'll look there tomorrow." Sure enough, the next day, Mr. Lane retrieved his wallet from exactly that spot. Everyone was creeped out. Noah wasn't just remembering things, he seemed to know them, often before anyone else could confirm. The strangest incident happened during a family gathering. Someone asked about a distant relative who hadn't been in touch for years. Noah, sitting quietly in a corner, muttered, "She's moving next week, don't tell anyone else." Days later, the aunt got a message from that very relative saying she had indeed moved, just as Noah had predicted. No one had discussed the move with him. There was no logical explanation. Living around Noah became a mixture of fascination and unease. He seemed to possess knowledge that no child should, and his calm demeanor made it even more unsettling. He never boasted or explained how he knew things, he simply did. One night after everyone had gone to bed, Noah whispered in his aunt's ear, "I know things you don't even think about." It was impossible to sleep that night. The house felt different, charged with the knowledge that a child so young could perceive layers of reality that adults could not. To this day, his family treats Noah's insights with a mixture of caution and awe. They never know what he will reveal next or how he manages to know things he has no right to. And sometimes, just sometimes, they feel like he's aware of more than just their secrets, perhaps even the hidden truths of the world around them. Story 10, the Roomba that followed instructions too literally. A friend of mine in Oregon bought a new smart Roomba for her apartment. It was one of the latest models, voice-activated, app-controlled, and with advanced mapping technology. At first, it seemed like the perfect helper. It cleaned floors, avoided obstacles, and even returned to its dock automatically. But soon, it started behaving oddly. One evening, she jokingly told it, "Clean the living room, but don't touch anything valuable." She expected it to ignore fragile items on tables like her grandmother's antique vase. But later, she found the vase on the floor untouched, while the Roomba had moved other objects away from its path with precise, almost deliberate care. It was as if it had interpreted valuable in a way no one taught it. Things escalated. The Roomba began moving objects, nudging doors closed, and even blocking hallways during the night. One morning, she woke up to find the Roomba sitting in front of her bedroom door, perfectly aligned as if preventing entry. Confused, she said aloud, "Just let me through, please." The device made a soft whirring sound and slowly moved aside. The eeriest part was the timing. The Roomba seemed to respond not just to spoken commands, but to potential consequences. It blocked a chair from tipping over when her cat jumped onto it, nudged a pan off the counter before it could fall, and even pushed a heavy book under the couch before she tripped on it later. One night, she tried testing it deliberately. She placed a small object on the edge of a counter and whispered, "Don't let it fall." Hours later, she found the Roomba had nudged it safely back to the center. There was no sensor to detect that kind of subtle imbalance. It shouldn't have known. Living with it became unnerving. The Roomba wasn't just a cleaning machine anymore. It was watching, predicting, intervening in ways that suggested awareness. She started joking that it had a personality, but deep down, she knew it was something stranger, an intelligence that acted on foresight rather than memory or routine. Now, every time she hears it hum in the night, she feels a mix of amusement and unease. It's doing what it was built to do, yes, but also so much more. The line between helpful and intelligent and a little too aware had blurred completely. Story 11, the Babysitter and the Window Shad. When I was 16, I took a babysitting job for a family in suburban New Jersey. The house was typical 2 stories, white siding, a swing set in the backyard. Everything seemed normal until the second night. I was in the living room, folding laundry, when I noticed something odd outside the large front window. A shadow lingered, tall, thin, almost humanoid, but it didn't move like a person. I froze, thinking it might be a trick of the porch light or a tree swaying in the wind. Minutes later, I heard a soft knock at the window. My heart raced. I peeked out, but there was nothing, just the shadow stretching along the wall. I tried to shake it off and focused on the kids upstairs. Then I heard it, a quiet whisper coming from the darkness outside. My blood ran cold. It said, "She's here." I bolted upstairs, checked the kids' room, and everything seemed fine. But the whisper came again, clearer this time. "Don't sleep, watch the window." I called the parents immediately. They laughed it off, thinking I was nervous, but agreed to check the security cameras. When they reviewed the footage, they saw it too, a figure moving slowly outside, never entering the yard, just lingering near the window. The weirdest part, it seemed to appear and disappear, as if it knew when the cameras were on. The parents didn't tell me much after that, but I couldn't shake the feeling. Every creak of the house, every shifting shadow made me jump. I finished the babysitting job, but every time I passed that house later, I felt like something was still watching. Years later, I heard a story that gave me chills. Apparently, the same shadow had been reported by multiple babysitters over the years, always appearing at night, always near the front window. Nobody ever caught it in person. I still remember standing there, peeking through the curtains, whispering to myself, hoping it wouldn't see me. That night taught me that intelligence, even from something unknown, doesn't have to be human to be terrifyingly aware. Story 12, the Cat That Knew the Storm Was Coming. A friend of mine in Florida has a Siamese cat named Luna. Normally, she's playful and affectionate, but she has this uncanny sense about weather, or maybe danger that always makes my friend uneasy. One evening, they were relaxing in the living room when Luna began pacing nervously, tail flicking, ears flat. She kept running to the windows, meowing urgently, staring outside as if warning them of something. My friend laughed at first, thinking it was just the cat being dramatic, but then Luna darted to the front door, scratching at it frantically. Moments later, the sky darkened unnaturally fast, the wind picking up and trees bending in the gusts. Within minutes, a severe storm was raging, far earlier than predicted by any weather app. Luna wasn't just restless. She led my friend to check windows, secure patio furniture, and move electronics away from areas that might flood. It was almost as if she knew exactly where the danger would hit. The next day, they checked the news. Several local houses had minor damage, but my friend's home was untouched. They were convinced Luna's urgent behavior had helped them prevent serious problems. Over the following weeks, the same pattern occurred. Every time a storm approached, sometimes days ahead, Luna would act anxious, pacing, meowing, and staring at specific areas. It wasn't random. She seemed to anticipate the severity and timing with astonishing accuracy. One particularly intense night, my friend was skeptical. Luna ignored all toys, food, and attention, focusing only on the windows. Minutes later, a tree fell in the backyard, not close enough to cause harm, but close enough to make it terrifying. My friend realized that Luna had been warning them again, exactly when it mattered most. It wasn't just a cat being intuitive. Luna's behavior suggested a level of awareness far beyond normal pet instincts. She wasn't predicting vaguely, she was precise. Her intelligence, tuned to sensing changes in the environment, felt almost supernatural at times. Now my friend treats Luna's warnings seriously. When she starts pacing or staring at the windows, it's time to pay attention. And even when the storms pass without incident, there's a lingering unease, a quiet recognition that sometimes awareness can come from the most unexpected places and it can save your life. Story 13, the smart fridge that gave a warning. A friend of mine in Michigan recently bought a smart fridge. It could track groceries, suggest recipes, and even send notifications to their phone when supplies were low. It seemed convenient at first, but then the fridge started doing things that no one could explain. One night around 11 p.m., my friend was watching TV when their phone buzzed. It was a notification from the fridge. Check the milk compartment. Puzzled, they went to the kitchen. Nothing seemed wrong at first glance, but then they noticed a small puddle forming underneath the milk container, slow, almost invisible, but enough to spill and ruin the eggs and bread nearby. The fridge hadn't been programmed to detect minor leaks. Somehow it had sensed it before anyone else could. The next week it happened again. The fridge notified them. Close the left door fully. They checked and saw the door hadn't latched completely. If left unattended, the temperature would have dropped, potentially spoiling everything inside. They tested it themselves multiple times. Nothing in the user manual mentioned this predictive feature. Things escalated when the fridge started issuing cryptic messages. Don't open the drawer yet. Check the freezer for frost buildup. Following the messages saved them from small accidents, spilled juice, freezer door left ajar, and even a minor electrical spark in the ice maker. It felt less like a machine and more like a guardian, silently aware of risks before they happened. The creepiest moment came during a late-night storm. The fridge pinged with a new message. Unplug now. Confused, my friend opened the plug only to see a spark flash from the wall outlet. The fridge had effectively saved the house from a potential fire. Living with the fridge became unnerving. It wasn't just a smart appliance anymore. It was intelligent in a way that felt almost human. It anticipated danger, monitored patterns, and acted in ways no software should be capable of. Even now, my friend swears they sometimes hear faint beeps or see the display flash cryptic messages that weren't there before. It's a reminder that sometimes intelligence, whether in machines, animals, or even children, can manifest in ways that are both helpful and deeply unsettling. Story 14, the kid who knew too much about the future. A friend of mine in Texas has a nephew named Alex, a 9-year-old boy who seemed ordinary at first, smart, curious, and a little mischievous. But over time, Alex began saying things that nobody could explain. One afternoon, Alex casually told his mom, "Don't go to the grocery store tomorrow at 3. There's going to be a huge accident." She laughed nervously, thinking it was just one of his imaginative guesses. But the next day, she heard on the news that a major collision had happened on the same route at the exact time Alex had mentioned. Nobody else had predicted it, and she hadn't told him anything about her schedule. After that, Alex started revealing small, specific details about future events. He would point out which neighbor's cat would get stuck in a tree, which classmate would spill their lunch, or even what TV shows would have surprising plot twists the next day. Some of it was trivial, but some was alarmingly precise. The most unsettling incident happened one evening at dinner. Alex looked at his dad and said, "Dad, don't leave the house after you finish eating. Something bad will happen if you do." His dad laughed it off, thinking it was a joke, but 20 minutes later, a car lost control at the corner near their house and smashed into a mailbox. If he had left, he could have been in the way. Alex never explained how he knew. He didn't brag, he didn't act scared, he just stated the facts calmly, like it was nothing unusual. It was as if he had access to a reality that adults couldn't see. The family became increasingly cautious around him. They started paying attention to his warnings, sometimes altering their routines based on what he said. While it saved them from minor accidents, it also created a constant sense of unease. Living with someone who can foresee events, even small ones, makes every ordinary day feel fragile. Even now, Alex's mom recalls moments when he would sit quietly, staring at nothing, and then speak a warning. It wasn't about controlling the future, it was about seeing it clearly and telling others. And sometimes she can't help but wonder, what else does he see that he doesn't say?
Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to see more stories.